All right, today we're going to dive into a head-to-head on investment strategies around crypto and the space of the metaverse. Of course, you have to think about two projects, not necessarily head-to-head in what they do. That is Axie and Decentraland, and today we're going to dive into that. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back to TechPath. Let's talk about Axie Infinity and also Decentraland. What is going on in these two projects when it comes to the potential for price discovery and also the potential for upside, and how this may look over the rest of this bull run, because both of these projects will most likely be in play big time on this bull run. So let's talk a little bit about each one. Decentraland's price to provide a buy opportunity before mana sets new highs at 750. We'll see how that goes. Decentraland's price seeing a minor pullback after a 10% upswing. The correction could extend, though, allowing mana to retest at $4 before rallying to an all-time high. This is the, again, predictions of where mana will potentially push out to. This is a very bullish look on where mana is going. Decentraland price is currently undergoing that minor retracement we talked about, which was that 10% retest. The key thing here, I think, with mana in Decentraland is that it has had an exposure level, at least on the metaverse side, where people are now starting to recognize it even more so as a good bet, much like what you've seen with Sandbox and in other projects that have those kind of similarities in terms of these big run-ups and these big growth. Gala Games, another example. So whether or not Decentraland can move and really shake and move into an all-time high, I think the key thing here will be we need to see a little bit more action coming out of Decentraland in terms of roadmap development and also just in general, I think partnerships, any kind of news that starts to move the needle on that. And I'm going to show you a comparison on the chart for each of these and where they came from, both from a sentiment side, and give you a recommendation, at least on my side, of what I'm going to do at the end of the video, so make sure and stay tuned for that. Remember though, these are market movers. Market movers, really simple. We put these together, we'll do an analysis, like in this particular case, head to head. It's not investment advice. Hopefully it's giving you guys the direction for the research that you want to dive into. This was on also over here on top 5 cryptos to watch during this bull run. Again, mana was selected. Turned down from 590 on November 25th. That was the dip we saw, but the long tail on candlesticks in the past 2 days shows that the bulls are attempting to defend the zone between about a 38.2 Fibonacci retracement and a level at 448, which is the 50% retracement level at 405. That's where I think we'll see a little bit of hovering on mana in terms of what is its movement. And when you look at the chart and kind of see where this is potentially taking off to, it's got some growth potential here. So don't completely lock out on mana just yet. I think this is definitely on its way to an all-time high. Question is when? When is the question? And if you were trying to invest in one or the other, which one would you put your bag in? That's going to be the question that we hope to answer in the video. All right, let's go over here to another project, and that, of course, is Axie Infinity, which, of course, had a price upside potential very limited as AXS struggles to tackle some of the hurdles that they're dealing with. The price could see a rally hindered by various headwinds ahead. There are 2 key hurdles they have to overcome in terms of higher prices and revisits all time. Major decline could be on the radar if Axie falls below 122, and that's where the retest seems to be bumping in and out of where Axie's performance has been versus what they were able to do right around the 170 mark in terms of performance here. The other thing that's kind of interesting with Axie, and that I don't know that a lot of people are watching this, and that is these, I don't call them trading funds, but it's in essence, you know, they're organizations or DAOs or groups that are getting into where they're funding transactions within Axie by putting big money behind either players, scholarships, some of those kind of things. That could play into a factor for some short-term growth and maybe a breakout growth for Axie. I don't necessarily see this in the short term, and I'll show you the chart and I'll show you why. But this news story right here is a good example of a former banker who basically quit his job at Goldman to play Axie Infinity. Not him personally, but he's reportedly launching a $1.5 billion crypto fund. And essentially what this does, and what this firm is going to do, is essentially build a roster of scholarships and also, I think, do digital asset holding within it. So it's a former Citigroup executive launching the $1.5 billion fund with the player, which is Sam Purifoy, who quit his job. Many people know him as Das Capitalist right there. He's the guy who basically will stake a lot of players in the metaverse, specifically on Axie, and get them into the game, which is, you know, we've talked to a lot of people who have big stables of these scholarships, and they're out there doing full play to earn, and it's working for them. And you know, the question is, how long will they hold that? Will Axie change that scholarship program up any? And whether or not Axie can really kind of bounce off this sideways action that it's been showing for the last few weeks, because that's going to be the big question. So whether or not you go Decentraland, if you were comparing these two bags and trying to figure out which one did you want to camp out in a little bit further, we'll show you some charts on that. Let's jump over to, actually I want to jump over to Mana. Let's take a look at Mana. So we went back here to end of October, which was really when Mana kind of unhooked from what its previous low was, and that sentiment number right there on, again, end of October, Metaverse weekend, we call it, 69.27 with an AMP score of the 64.77, which really was not a complete, we did not call the top on this. We missed it by a little bit with our chart here, but we did see an upside movement and then this sideways action, which is why I feel like we did not see a amplification flip here on Mana. But when you look further into the chart, where it's trading right now at $4.67, I just want to kind of chart up from that growth. Let's go over here and get the ruler and just kind of take a look at where this has gone right there to that high at right at 430%. And if you continue to take a look at where this potentially could go, and the question is whether it hits that all-time high right there of 590 or potentially breaks through. I have a feeling, based on what we're seeing here with sentiment and amplification, this zone looks pretty solid, with the exception of this little downtrend right here of taking an uptrend for Mana. And best of all, you've got amplification tracking very tightly to what's happening on sentiment for this project. Let me explain the sentiment and amplification for some of you who are new. We have a tool that we've been building on for many years called the Crypto Power Index, CPI, and we'll refer to it that way. What it measures is basically digital conversations on social media platforms, and it's looking for traceability based on people's intent to do something, sell it, buy it, like it, dislike it, etc. It's an NLP algorithm that basically looks at discussions, models it into a score, and you get a sentiment score, a 1 to 100, 100 being best. Any kind of project that starts to track in the 70s, which both of these projects are, those are performing very high. Now, we've seen 80s before. It's typically when we see all-time highs and the amount of juice that occurs around a project is just so dynamic. Amplification is a little different. It starts to look at the weighted score of influencers and or viral content or viral information, especially in crypto Twitter, that starts to gain traction and influence many other networks or people. So example would be you have someone with 10,000 followers, but their entire follower group has maybe 100 million within their ecosystem because they have some super fans or some super followers that are even bigger than them. That would be an amplification example of getting those kind of upper scores. And that is important because it usually indicates leading and forward indicating numbers. And that's where we kind of map this in to our TradingView indice to give you guys these scores. So if you look back here at Mana and where our CPI score is looking, we got a low in here right at 438, and we're trading at 467 right now. We have another little dip right here at 459, 449, but we have some upside potential also around December 6th is kind of where that hovers at around 561. So that kind of gives you some idea of how these things go. We have been fairly accurate with these over the past 6 months when we've applied some new data modeling for it. And in many cases, we'll be very close to picking these charts. in upwards, downward trends. Obviously, you get something that gets viral like an Axie or something like that. Those are hard to track because they just go vertical so quickly. Let's take a look at Axie so you can kind of see mana and where it's coming with Decentraland. Here's Axie. So as you can see with Axie, we've tracked this one quite a ways back. Originally, we pulled this first pop when Axie was trading right at $64. Sentiment was around in the 74. It had that flip of 75.66. This was again back in September. Nice climb, big growth here. If you look at that growth percentage from right there to that high, you were looking at 167% growth. Then we had a lot of this sideways action, which is when sentiment dropped, amplification also dropped, and then we had another score which we pulled a light score here, 71 and a 70, also sideways action. So it's been going a little bit sideways for a while. The interesting thing here is we had this little bit of a move right here, and I want to look at where that low was to right there. So an 18%, 20% move, and then a retracement almost about the same amount, where we had about a 15 to 20% retracement right here. Sentiment again still holding 71.58, and amplification is slightly higher. So would we call this a flip? Yes, we would. Now the only problem is when you lay the metrics in over on top of these price points, it doesn't show necessarily a full breakout. It shows a nice little pop right here at about 149, but I wouldn't call that necessarily a big move for Axie. So something would have to break loose on Axie in terms of either news or some major involvement, much like some of these big funds that are doing some of these scholarship programs. Those kind of things may and could move these projects for people who are looking at investing in these. So if I was looking at both of these, I would lean toward mana, at least at this point. That's where I'm leaning, for my own investments. I still am invested in Axie, and full disclosure, both mana. I think I would be looking at maybe trying to rebag a little bit over here in the mana bag because I feel like there's going to be some more growth in the short term. Long term, Axie is highly underpriced. This is one of those projects that over time is just going to get better and better and better. So it is not a bad investment at all. This is for you that are out there maybe having to decide on where you want to get the short-term gains during this bull run and what bags do you want to be looking at to get into. And if you are, Metaverse is kind of one of the hot standards right now that we're watching. Of course, you guys have seen our sandbox video. If you haven't, check that one out. We have 2 great Metaverse portfolio videos, and I'm going to do an update on our DGen video, which is kind of what we call our level 4 risk. It's a high risk portfolio, and we've got some new tokens in it, and we're going to be adding some additional tokens in this week that we'll reveal to you guys, so that might be a potential. And I know you guys have asked, hey, reveal those right before, during your research and getting into them right at the beginning. Like we did on the last video for that one, we'll do that again this week as well. If you guys have comments and you want to talk about projects to do head-to-heads or this or that, if I wanted to invest in one and the other, we'd love to do a video to kind of address that. If it's the right kind of fit for the channel, we will do our best to try to get to it. If you're over on the podcast, thanks for all the subscribers over there, growing like crazy, but this is the place right here on YouTube. We are blasting off here in terms of our channel subscriptions, subscriptions. And it's all thanks to you guys and the Diamond Circle. The Diamond Circle is an absolute huge success. We're going to continue to drop more analytics, more research, and more study guides in there for you guys. So free to join, easy to get to. And if you have, of course, something you want to chat with me about, hit me up on Twitter, @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.